We don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback of the Steelers this year, but if Mike Tomlin rolls with Russell Wilson as QB1, things are going to get really ugly very quickly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for some reason, despite Russell Wilson still being a good quarterback, Denver was willing to take the NFL's largest cap hit in league history to get rid of him. And if you're a good quarterback, you don't get cut for that big of a cap hit if you still are serviceable. Russell Wilson, I don't give a damn about what the stats say. The stats are a lie. I remember there was a year when Blake Bortles threw for 40 touchdowns in the season. Statistically, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league that year. But if you watch the game, you would know that the majority of Blake Bortles' 40 touchdowns that year came in the fourth quarter in garbage time when they were down multiple possessions. The same thing happened with Russell Wilson last year. A lot of his touchdowns came in the fourth quarter when they were down by several touchdowns because he played so terrible throughout the first three quarters. And we got to stop making Russell Wilson out to be a victim in Denver. Because when he got traded from Seattle to the Broncos, he was supposed to be the fix to the long-time quarterback woes. He was supposed to make Denver a Super Bowl contender again. But instead, he ended up being a massive disappointment. It wasn't all his fault because Nathaniel Hackett was an awful head coach, but a good quarterback is supposed to elevate his team. People keep saying Russell Wilson didn't have this. He didn't have that. He didn't have a good offensive line. Denver had a pretty good offensive line. It's just that you wouldn't have been able to tell that because of the amount of sacks that Russell Wilson took, holding on to the football too long, trying to be Houdini with the football, which he doesn't have the ability to be anymore because he's getting old, he's regressing, and his athleticism is diminishing. And I've seen way too many Steelers fans come at me in my DMs in the comment section saying that you got to ignore what happened in Denver. Denver was an outlier, so ignore Father Time catching up to Russ. If you watched Russell Wilson in the two preseason games that he played in this year, he looked old and sluggish. At this point, I don't even call him Russ anymore. I call him Grandpa Russell. And if the Steelers are going to have a young offensive line that's going to be heavily inconsistent, you do yourself a disservice throwing a guy back there that doesn't have the ability to evade pressure. And he also isn't that better of a passer than what Justin Fields is. Russell Wilson was in the middle of the pack when it came to throwing in the middle of the field last year. He is petrified to throw in the middle of the field, and he's scared to push the football downfield despite being known for being one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in the past decade in the league. And everything that has made Russell Wilson one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL over the past decade has now starting to gone away. You want to know why? Because he's getting old, he's regressing. He doesn't have the ability to maintain the same playing style that's given him this reputation because he can't evade sacks anymore. Everybody talks about Russell Wilson and his preseason performance having to deal with bad offensive line play. This dude was dealing with bad offensive line play for the majority of his prime years in Seattle. That's what made him so great. He was able to overcome bad offensive lines because he could wiggle out of sacks. He could make defensive linemen look foolish. He can't do that anymore. He can only beat you from within the pocket, and he can't do that due to him being undersized, not being able to see in the middle of the field, and all he throws is checkdowns. You know who Russell Wilson reminds me of in the black and gold? Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett didn't take a lot of shots downfield. He threw a lot of checkdowns, and you saw where that got the Steelers' offense last year. Absolutely nowhere. By starting Russell Wilson, you keep repeating the same mistake that you've made with your last couple of quarterbacks. With you having quarterbacks that just want to be check down Charlies and don't want to take shots downfield. And it's really disappointing that the Steelers continue to roll with these kinds of quarterbacks that don't want to throw the football deep when you have one of the NFL's best deep threats in George Pickens? Could you imagine the kind of numbers George Pickens would put up if he had a quarterback like Jordan Love or CJ Stroud throwing him the football? Justin Fields gives the Steelers the best chance to have success this year because, for one, he's a way better athlete at this point in his career than what Russell Wilson is. He's going to be able to overcome having inconsistent offensive line play. Two, he's, believe it or not, one of the NFL's best deep ball throwers. He was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league and passes 20 yards or more last year. With George Pickens being a really good contested catch, 50-50 ball wide receiver, him and Justin Fields are going to have a really good connection with each other. And I just think that at this point, you are better off rolling with Justin Fields for the entirety of this season than you are Russell Wilson. You see, the only advantage that Russ gives you over Justin Fields is that he takes care of the football. But Kenny Pickett took care of the football. He didn't have too many turnovers. I'd rather have a quarterback that may have a couple of turnovers here and there, but he gives my offense more explosiveness because he's going to be more aggressive and pushing the football downfield. You also have those games that when everything goes right for Justin Fields, he can carry your team to a win. I mean, let's not forget how good he played against the Atlanta Falcons and the Detroit Lions in games in the past. You know, there were games when Dan Campbell just said Justin Fields was freaking unstoppable. You know, when Justin Fields has those games when he just explodes and he's terrorizing you through the air and he's dominating you on the ground, the Steelers will be a really tough team to beat this year because you know how good their defense is going to be. I don't care about his turnover issues. You got a defense that is good enough to overcome that. But you're putting your defense at a disadvantage when you're going to have the same quarterback back there that you've had the last 2-3 years. Russell Wilson is not that big of an upgrade from Kenny Pickett because at this point of his career, he plays the quarterback position the same way Kenny Pickett does. He's scared to throw the football deep. He only wants to throw 5- and 6-yard checkdowns. And that's the same thing KP used to do. And that didn't get the Steelers offense nowhere, but going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out every damn possession. Are you Steelers fans tired of mediocrity at quarterback? Like, why are so many people so delusional about Russell Wilson that they can't accept the fact that he's 35 years old, he's regressing, he's a diminishing asset? Please get over this vision of your head of Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson. Those days are long and gone. This dude is cooked. If he was still a good quarterback, the Broncos wouldn't have took the NFL's largest cap hit in league history to get rid of him. You can't justify that. The logic that Steelers fans are using to justify having hope and optimism that Russ is going to be the guy to lead Mike Tomlin to once again another winning season is really stupid to me. I can't wrap my head around it. You don't cut a good quarterback for that big of a cap hit. Do you know how hard it is for Denver to recover from that? They're like $80 million in dead cap. They can't even sign nobody else this season. You know, and I don't even know how they're going to be able to recover from this big of a dead cap hit next year. But they felt like Russell Wilson was so bad that they had to get rid of him. And you're trying to blame Sean Payton when Bo Nix has been balling out in the preseason. This is also the same head coach that was winning games with Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, Teddy Bridgewater, and we really are going to try to make Russell Wilson out to be the victim? I have nothing against Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a big part of my childhood, but I'm not somebody who gets over-attached to players to the point that I ignore when they are obviously regressing. You can't play football at an elite level forever. Eventually, Father Time comes knocking on the door, and he comes to collect. It happened to Tom Brady. It happened to Peyton Manning. What makes Russell Wilson so great that he can overrun Father Time? Russell Wilson is washed. He's cooked. He's not good anymore. And if you are a Steelers fan, believing that Russ is going to be able to rewind the clock back to 2015 and 2016, you are delusional. Your justification is, well, he's better than what we've had. What you've had has been bare minimum. Probably worse than that. You're trying to compare shit to crap. And there isn't a difference. No matter what, the Steelers still have the worst quarterback room in the AFC North. You still are going to have a tough time being able to beat the Ravens and Joe Burrow twice. You beat the Bengals twice last year with Jake Browning. Joe Burrow fully healthy, they're going to mop the floor with the Steelers. You barely beat the Ravens JV team. People love to talk about how Mike Tomlin swept the Bengals and the Ravens last year, but they leave out how you didn't play Lamar Jackson in the second game. You played Tyler Huntley. You barely won that game. It was quite embarrassing to watch, as a matter of fact. I mean, this is the same team that lost the two of the NFL's worst teams in back-to-back weeks, the New England Patriots and the Arizona Cardinals. I don't get how people can be this delusional about a guy who has obviously regressed. He's not good anymore. He's playing on a veteran minimum contract, for crying out loud, people. Justin Fields gives the Steelers the best chance to win this year. I really would love for Steeler fans to stop being so attached to just mediocrity. When has our level of expectations fallen this far? We went from Big Ben, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, to Kenny Small Hands Pickett, to Mason Rudolph, to Mitchell Trubisky, to now old Grandpa Russell Wilson. Please, Mike Tomlin, if you're listening to this right now, which I doubt you are, but just in case you are, please do the right thing. Start Justin Fields. He gives you more upside with his ability to throw the football deep downfield with accuracy. He's a really good runner with the ball in his hands, and with how dynamic of a runner Justin Fields is, he automatically is going to guarantee that you're going to have an elite rushing attack. Najee and Jaylen Warren in the same backfield with Justin Fields, I don't think too many defensive coordinators are going to want a game plan for that. It's hard to game plan for Justin Fields when you have games when everything's going right, he's taking care of the football. This offense can be hard to stop. But when everything's going right for Russell Wilson, you're still not really getting nowhere because all he does is throw checkdowns. I just wish that people would wake up about Russell Wilson. Stop being attached to nostalgia. Stop judging people for what they used to be and judge people for what they are now. And what you see in front of you is an old, aging, and diminishing asset that is Russell Wilson.